morning, and welcome to Wednesdays with Darren and Cindy, where we bring you real conversation about things that affect our lives and the community. My name is Cindy Ward,
And my name is Darren Powell.
and we are going to be your host for our podcast. Boss manages their employees while a leader inspires them to innovate, to think creatively, and to strive for perfection. Every team has a boss, as we all know, but what people really need is a leader who will help them to achieve greatness.
The term leadership is defined as an individual who possesses the ability to influence and inspire others towards their accomplished goals. They are someone who holds a dominant position and leads others by example. They're a person with vision who stays committed to their goals and, and strives continually towards the achievement of it. They set an example in such a way that people get motivated and follow their footsteps or directions.
Well, that's good. Well, in today's episode, we are dealing with the difference of a leader and a boss. So, not pretty much leadership, but who is a leader and who is a boss. And I am honored to include our guest on today's show as the one and the only Command Sergeant Major Turner. I'll let Command Sergeant Major Turner introduce himself by telling us a little bit about himself and the journey that leads him from East Texas woo, woo, to the position that he holds today. Command Sergeant Major Turner, enlighten us.
Right. Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Miss Ward, Mr. Powell. Thank y'all for inviting me onto the show here. And so I am the Garrison Command Sergeant Major for United States Army Garrison, Japan. Took over in December 2020 from Sergeant Major Norman. I hail from East Texas, just like Miss Ward said. Population, a very rural area, population like 200 or 300 people. Joined the Army in 2001, had to get away, honestly, because the job opportunities were not there at the time. And so my brother, who was 5 years older than me, he joined the Navy and inspired me to join the Army, right? Okay. And so that's the story behind that. So anywho, so I went to basic training at Fort Jackson, South Carolina. Also went to advanced individual training at Fort Jackson, South Carolina. From there, I did a lot of time in the special operations community. So I was with the 528 Special Operations Support Command, as well as with the Special Missions Unit under the USASOC umbrella. So again, I did that for 9 years. Also did a stint in recruiting from 2005 to 2008. I was a first sergeant of a military interest processing station, also known as a MEPS in Amarillo, Texas. And from there, I was selected for the United States Army Sergeant Majors Academy, Class 68 at Fort Bliss, Texas. Immediately following the Sergeant Majors Academy, I reported to Headquarters Battalion, 3rd Armored Corps at Fort Hood, where I served as a Battalion Command Sergeant Major. Deployed with the Corps Headquarters and recently returned in September. So I am married to my beautiful wife, Royal. We've been married for 12 years. It'll be 12 in January, excuse me. And so between the both of us, we have 5 children. Ages range from 3 years old to 18 years old. And so as far as the accomplishments, I would just highlight 2 major accomplishments that I've accomplished throughout my career. And that's one that's obtaining a master's degree in business administration with a concentration in human resources, and being inducted into the prestigious Sergeant Audie Murphy Club.
Awesome. Awesome. Yes. All right. Well, what would you say is your leadership style? What would you say that is? Which one is it?
Okay.
I'm kind of guessing because you are from East Texas, but I don't want to assume. So.
All right. Well, I tell you, for me to break down my leadership style, I think it's important that I go into the different styles of leadership, right? I'm going to be general about it, but I think it's important. So for me, leadership is just like what Mr. Powell said, and that's influencing someone to do something that they normally wouldn't do in order to improve the organization or better themselves, right? And the key word throughout that entire sentence there, or entire definition, is the word influence.
Right.
So there's different type of influential behaviors and traits that leaders have in order to influence to get somebody to do what they normally wouldn't do, right? And so there's different powers associated with those influences. So some people use hard powers, right?
Right.
And normally you would see this in a lot of our drill sergeants. And people use their hard powers is normally associated with positional powers as well, to where they use their position or the rank in order to get people to do stuff that they normally wouldn't do.
True.
And so if you were trying to change somebody's behavior, or if you had to accomplish a mission in a short period of time, then you can rely on those type of hard powers. Now, again, going back to the drill sergeants, you'll see that a lot of times in our drill sergeants, because they have to take the civilian or this new recruit and quickly change their mentality or change their behaviors to conform with the Army standards.
True.
The downside with using this type of power and type of tactic is it can become off as toxic, right? If you use it all the time, because we're in a human business, right? This is a human business, and humans drive this organization, and so you have to connect with people on a personal level in order to influence them to get them to do what you know has to be done for the organization. The polar opposite of hard powers is the soft powers, right? And that's when you're using your personal powers in order to influence people. A lot of people associate this with that reverend power. You ever met those people that just got it, right?
Right.
Whatever it is, you just want to follow them, right? Yeah. And you'll see this a lot of times in our recruiters. Like I mentioned before, I did a stint in recruiting. That's kind of where I tend to learn how to use this personal power. Because at the end of the day, you think about it, 17-year-old Tammy or Susan, they don't have to join the Army. They don't care if you're sergeant or sergeant major, whatever case may be. So how do you tap into that personal power in order to get Susan and Timmy, and Susan's mother and Timmy's mother, to trust you, right? And so that's how I learned how to do that. Now, with that being said, the downside of using the personal power is a lot of people will try you sometimes. Right? They're going to test you because they think, and which is good, that you come off as a very nice person.
Right.
And especially soldiers, they'll try you. So with that being said, to answer your question, I'm more of a soft power type of person, but occasionally I have to break it in case of emergency, right? I use hard power tactics in order to get someone's attention when I need to. Just to let them know, hey, I can switch it if I need to, but I choose not to because I'd rather connect with people on a personal level.
That's awesome. And I was right then, because I did take him as, being more of the recruiter than the drill sergeant. So, all right.
Okay, I think this is a super, super important question. Who would you say was your biggest inspiration, mentor, a leader that you patterned your style of leadership after in your career or in your life?
Well, I'll tell you, Mr. Powell, I had several leaders throughout my entire career that have shaped me in some form and fashion. But two people in particular, not even soldiers, but two people that inspired me so much was, one, my mom, because I can always rely on her, and she's going to give me some honest feedback, and two, my father-in-law. And so really and truly, my father-in-law has probably been the most inspirational person that has influenced my behaviors, and I'll tell you why. So my father-in-law, and he don't mind me sharing this because he shares this story all the time, is like a poster person for resiliency. And the reason I say that, so back in the early 90s, he had a bad stint with drug addiction, and that led to his going to prison and spending a couple years in prison, and also losing his family as well, as far as divorce and not being there for his kids. So with that being said, he did his time in prison, he got out of prison, his whole entire life changed. So fast forward now, currently he's a pastor of an AMC church, and he's a director of a Barber College in Houston and in Dallas. So again, he didn't let his circumstances of the past define who he is now, right?
That's awesome.
So in addition, what I learned so much from him is that I'm an introvert, true and true, right? It's nothing more, I know it's hard to believe, but it's nothing more than I love to go home and just be in my own thoughts and reading books and just being by myself, and that's just how I am, right? Just how I am. But I learned early as an NCO that if I was going to get intentional about connecting with people, then I had to get out of my introverted type ways, right? And so just it's not so much what my father-in-law said, but it's how I looked at his behaviors and how he connected with his employees and with our family members. And I learned so much from him on how to, again, just connect with people and build relationships on that human level.
That's awesome. So with the person being a very successful leader, you had your father-in-law as a great example. What would you say are the best characteristics that a person can have in order to be a successful leader?
Yeah, so to me, the three best characteristics a person can have is one is competence, commitment, and character. And I'll go into detail if we got a little time about those.
Definitely.
Three. Okay.
3 C's. Yes.
The 3 C's.
The 3
Yep.
C's.
Absolutely. And so our leadership manual defines what competence are, right? And so basically that's leads, develops, and achieves. And so as a leader, you have to lead not only your subordinates, but up and down the chain of command too. You have to influence your higher headquarters, influence their policies and procedures as well. And when it comes to development, you have to develop yourself, right? To be a leader, and we should always be lifelong learners, but also developing our subordinates as well. And you ask any of our NCOs in the garrison, they're probably tired of hearing this, is that I think counseling is probably one of the most powerful developmental tools that we have in our arsenal, and I wholeheartedly believe that. Because with counseling, right, over the years it has a negative connotation because unfortunately a lot of our leaders only counsel people when something negative happens.
That's true.
That's not what the Army designed this program to be. So we should be counseling our junior soldiers every month and our NCOs every quarter. And what that would do, right, back it up a little bit. They're supposed to sit down and establish goals and goals and objectives for the subordinate to accomplish. And those are agreed upon goals, and like we call them SMART goals, right? Specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. So once you agree upon those goals, then it's on that leader to hold that subordinate accountable. But the beauty of this, right, is I would think that no leader wants to be a hypocrite. So if that leader is agreeing to hold that subordinate accountable, it's going to force that leader to be held accountable as well. Because we don't want to do something or give our subordinates a task that we can't do. So if I'm telling Joe, hey, you need to get a 250 on the PT test, guess what? That means I need to get it too. Hey, you need to go to college. That means I need to go to college too, right? And the last thing I would say, along with those competencies, is achieves, right? The main reason why we're here is to win, is to fight and deploy and win our nation wars. That's the reason why our Army exists, right? Nothing more, nothing less. That's why we're here. And so we always got to have that at the forefront of our minds, that we have to achieve and win at any cost, right? Because we got to protect our nation's interests and our freedoms. So,
awesome.
All right. So that's the competency.
Wow.
The other two, and I'll hit on real quick because I know we're short for time. Like I said, commitment. At the end of the day, we all take an oath, right, to defend the Constitution of the United States. And we haven't had a draft since 1973, so it's been an all-volunteer Army. So our soldiers and our leaders specifically has to be committed to our values and to the organization, and more importantly, to our subordinates that they lead.
That's true.
Okay? And the last thing I hit on is character. If I was to say that out of all the leader qualities that are defined by our leader manual, character is the most important to me, right?
I agree.
Because at the end of the day, it's about trust.
Right.
And if you have a serious character flaw as a leader, that means the subordinates are watching that. Now, I'm not talking about mistakes, right? Because mistakes are going to happen, but I'm talking about true character flaws that's within the fabric of a person. You'll get exposed as you continue to move up the ranks, right? And we can't have that in our Army. And quite frankly, I don't think people with character flaws, serious character flaws, need to be in our Army. So.
Wow, that's amazing. I agree with, don't you agree? But with the character is huge. And so I think everyone should be a person of character. And that's the one thing I tell my children every morning before they leave out the house. I tell them, make sure that you're doing the right thing and be a person of character. And to this day, my daughter says, I always think about what you said, Mom, be a person of character, and she's 23. So that holds a lot of weight.
Yeah. Nice. Well, the next question, I think, it's one that I think I'm a person who's really big on vision and everything like that. And so, at what point did you, in your career or in your life, did you look up there and say, I want to be the command sergeant major of Army Garrison, Japan? Because that's big business. I mean, to me, I'm awestruck. When I see what you do every day and how you conduct yourself, I'm so impressed from a distance. But definitely, I know it had to start with a vision, and at some point, it's like you had to say, I'm kind of, some people say it just happens, but it doesn't just happen. It's purpose, intentional. So.
I'm with you. I'll tell you, Mr. Powell, and I'm being honest when I say this, is that I'm still in awe, right, about being selected. And even as a command sergeant major, when I was selected as a battalion, I was humbled and I was in awe. So I don't think it was ever a point in my career that I just sat back and said, hey, I want to be a command sergeant major of Japan, right, of Garrison of Japan. I always said I wanted to be competitive for promotion, and I was always striving for promotion. But it's still a humbling experience to be selected as the Garrison CSM here. So, not sure if that answered your question or not.
No, that's good.
All right.
That's good. That's good.
That's awesome. And I remember at the beginning you did say that you are married, you do have children. How has being that family man, how has being that husband helped you be a better leader?
Well, I'll tell you, I think it absolutely shaped me as a better leader for a couple of different ways. One, with patience, right? Like I said, I have 5 kids, and so you have to be patient with the kids as well as with soldiers too, right? You got to know that they're going to make mistakes, and it's going to happen. And so with me, what I want my children to do is be able to come to me with problems, and not be afraid to come to me with problems. So if they mess up, I'm very cautious of how I react to hearing some bad news, because I don't want them to be afraid to tell me stuff. Right. And the same thing with my soldiers. If they come with me to issues or with problems, again, I got to be mindful of how I react, because I don't want to be that leader to where like, hey, we can't go to Sergeant Major to let him know that there's a problem going on, right? I always want to have that open dialogue with my soldiers. That's the first thing. The second thing is just the empathy part of it, right? Being a family man that I am, I'm always trying to be there as much as possible for those big events like the birthdays and the anniversaries, and if it's an unfortunate death in the family, trying to be there to support those events. And so I try to preach that to my soldiers as well, that stuff is important and they need to be there. Even as far as the kids' doctor's appointments. I know my wife can go and attend, but I would like to be there as well to show that support. Now, being in a position as a Garrison Command Sergeant Major, as a Command Sergeant Major, now I can influence that, right? And allow for that time to be off, or kind of push them to go and spend that time together with the family. Because at the end of the day, I mean, that's what it's about. It's about family, right? And I would say a lot of people define success as spending 20 years in the Army and retiring, right? As a senior NCO, Sergeant First Class and above. To me, I define success spending 20 years in the Army, retiring to Sergeant First Class and above. But in addition to that is having your family with you when you retire, right? Because you have to keep that balance. We all try to strive to be better leaders, all right? And sometimes some leaders, what they'll do, again, in order to try to progress to the next rank, is work late hours and things like that. But the family's suffering for that, right? And on the flip side of that too, you got to be cautious of the amount of time. You don't want to spend all the time at home, because now you're
work is lacking.
Yes. So it has to be that scale has to be balanced, right? And so it's important for us as leaders to assist our soldiers in finding that balance with the family.
That's good. Balance is key. Balance is really good key. But all right. So since balance is key, what do you find the most difficult part about doing your job?
All right. Well, right now, again, I've been 3.5 months into the position, and what I would say is the most difficult thing about my job right now is the ability to connect with every employee. And what I'll share with you is, and it was told to me, as you continue to progress through the ranks, your sphere of influence increases, but your sphere of control decreases, right? And once your sphere of control decreases, again, the organization that you continue to grow in, you will not be able to connect with every single employee. And so this is the first time in my career that if I go to a sub-directorate, I don't know someone's name, right? And so that is a challenge for me.
Right.
Again, I want to be a personal leader, so that is a challenge for me. One thing that is established here, and it was established prior to me getting here, that's kind of helping out, is the Garrison Commander's spot recognition program that he established. And basically what that is anyone who receives an ICE comment with their name specifically, he goes out and recognizes those employees, each employee, with either a coin or a poker chip or a certificate. And so what this allowed me to do is to get out with him and recognize those employees that normally I wouldn't have any interactions with, right? But even if it's for a short period of time, at least I can know by name who these individuals are and help recognize those individuals with the Garrison Commander.
Awesome. Okay.
Good.
Wow.
Our last question, I think it's a powerful question, and it talks about the value of followership. Could you tell us how a soldier could be an impactful leader from a place of followership?
Well, I think that followership and leadership goes hand in hand. It goes hand in hand, right? Because at the end of the day, it's the followers that's going to make that leader successful. And it's the followers and the employees of organizations that's going to make that organization successful. Those are the folks who are actually carrying out the mission. Now, you can absolutely be impactful as a follower. In my opinion, 3 different things, right? One is to be supportive of that supervisor, of that leader's mission. Because if they're giving you a mission as a follower, sometimes we don't know how that mission or that task plays into the big picture of the organization,
That's
right?
true. That's true.
And so just being supportive of that mission. And so what this don't look like, right, is if you get a task from that leader and you go out and you back brief your subordinates or back brief the co-workers like, we got to do this, or the boss wants us to do this, right? Or, hey, I know this is an unpopular decision, but this is what we got to do. No, that's not being supportive. Really and truly being supportive, going out and taking ownership of that decision that's being made for the organization. Now, along with that too, my second point is you have to give your leader the benefit of your knowledge. And what I mean by that is, if you are privy to a decision that's going to be made, don't get comfortable or don't tell the boss what he or she wants to hear. You got to tell them, really and truly what they need to hear. Now, with me, and this is, I would never say no to my commander. I would never say no to my commander. What I will say, right, is, or will lay out, is the risk that's associated with the decision that he or she is going to make. Right, and how that's going to impact the organization, right? Or I will come up with proposed solutions or recommendations, maybe that's different from the decision that he's going to make at that time, that may ease some of the, some of the pressure, so to speak. But again, I would never say no. So again, that's how you can still be impactful as a follower. And if the decision that you recommend is not if they don't take that decision and they make their own decision, that's fine. Don't take it personal.
Right.
Still go out and have that professional attitude and still follow through with whatever their decisions made at that time. Because at the end of the day, employees will see that, soldiers will see that, And if they can see a rift between you and your supervisor, they're going to exploit the seams.
Yes, they are.
They're going to exploit it every single time, right?
Yeah.
So it has to be a unified effort and a unified front when you come out together. So, and the last point I'll make on this is just taking the initiative as a follower, taking the initiative, and that is key and huge. So if you see a problem within the organization, hey, fix it, right? And if you can't fix it, and it's on the supervisor to make that decision, at least come with recommendations on how you propose for that problem to be fixed, and that way you're not just relying on bringing the supervisor problems without any recommendations.
That's awesome. You know, I was always taught that a good follower becomes a great leader. And so my dad always told us, you got to follow first. And so he was like, and when you follow, you be the best follower you can ever be. So he was like, if you sweep the floor, you be the best floor sweeper ever, because then you'll be the best janitorial manager after that. You know what I mean? Absolutely. So that's great. Thank you for those tips on followership. All right. Well, we're going to conclude for today. Mr. Darren, do you have anything else?
Nothing. I've learned a lot. And this has been fun. It's been fun, and it's been fun sitting down with you. And thank you for being so candid and transparent with us and the Garrison. And hopefully it'll be impactful for others as much as it is for myself and Cindy's, I'm sure.
Yes. And like I said, like Darren said, thank you so very, very much, for having coming on to our podcast for today. And we're going to conclude Wednesdays with Darren and Cindy. We had as our guest today Command Sergeant Major Turner, and we will see everyone next week.
Thank you all for having me. Thank you.
Thank you.